Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com. Be sure to check out the Girl and the Gay podcast, a bi-monthly podcast where Beck and Jay discuss their favorite movies, available on Apple Podcasts.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Welcome to episode of Found Footage Fridays.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Well, we are continuing with new found footage this week. Last week we covered Frogman. Prior to that, we did we went through all of the Paranormal Activities, which is not new. So it's been kind of nice getting to some newer stuff that's just coming out. So today we are talking the 2024 found footage film Life of Belle. I actually saw a bunch about this before I watched it. And I watched it because I saw so many people talking about how much they loved it. Because there's a lot of people on board with this one that were like, this is super good. Please go watch. This is streaming on Tubi. So if you haven't seen it, don't worry. As always, it'll be half spoilers or half no spoilers, half spoilers. We'll put spoiler banner up. So if you haven't seen it, you can watch it on Tubi. But yeah, so the short synopsis is 8-year-old Annabelle Starnes is missing and there is no leads as to where she might be. We do like them vague. Super vague.
Very vague synopsis, yes. I didn't know what we were getting into and I hit play. I didn't do much of
I went in blind essentially. I didn't even read a description. I just jumped into it on Tubi and watched it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess to start, it's primarily security cameras. And then the daughter has a new camera that she films from, which is Belle.
Very Paranormal Activity 2.
It is very Paranormal Activity. That's a good shout. It is, yeah. And yeah, it's an interesting one because so I am a mother. So things with moms and children always just are very invoke very specific things within me, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. And I went into this with relatively high expectations because of all the positive things I've seen about it. And I think, we're going to dive into spoilers later. So I think the shortest way to sum up kind of how I'm feeling is I was not as impressed with this as a lot of other people were. I struggled with the concept as a whole. I struggled with the way some of the, I guess we'll call them topics or themes were handled. And I really struggled with the believability of the mom character in particular. I think that the kids performance-wise, I think the kids did phenomenal. Almost to the point where I wonder if they were actually legitimately scared and crying for real because it was so convincing. Like they did such a great job. They have very bright futures ahead of them. Like they did such a great job. There was just some of the story elements or the events that happened, I really struggled with this one. And then I'll be honest with you, the ending really frustrated me. I like endings where you don't necessarily see them coming. And I think this movie puts you in a very specific mindset and you think you're like, okay, well, obviously they're doing this. And then very abruptly with like no evidence or reason, it just goes into another direction, almost just for the sake of being different. And I was really frustrated by that. So I was not as bemused with Life of Belle as a lot of people are online.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably echo 99% of what you said. I mean, to start with the positives, I think the kids are great. Right. I think
those were great.
Yeah, the girl that played Belle, I think was phenomenal, and you believe them as these young. Was she 8 years old? So whatever she was, then you believe them as kids, and she wants to be a YouTuber, so she gets a camera and she creates this little Life of Belle show, and it's so cute.
It's cute.
I didn't know if it was going to be a paranormal film because I didn't read any. I didn't know what it was going to be, and you don't.
I thought it was. The cover is very paranormal too.
Yes.
I feel.
Absolutely. But then, I don't know, right? It could have been anything. And, I think the movie definitely leads you to think it's going to be one thing. And I was definitely going to be very upset if it was solely the one thing.
Sure.
I'm still a little,
same.
And then once you get a little inkling of, okay, there's something a little deeper going on here, then all right. So there's more explanation as to why characters are acting
Couple
the way that they're
layers.
acting.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely, like I was saying, there's a lot of stuff around mental health. I mean, you guys know I'm a therapist. If you don't, I am. Surprise. But uh, yeah,
Yeah.
when movies tackle mental health, I'm very and you don't have to be a therapist to be
Sure.
tuned into that either. I think we all should have good mental health representation in film, and I think it's good to have characters who struggle, but like to show that. But the way you handle it is really important.
I agree.
And I thought that was sort of going to be the villainization of mental health at one point, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh no, 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 no,
Yep, 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 yep.
no. But then yeah, and then without getting into spoilers too, right? So there's a turn about 2/3 through the movie. We're like, okay, it's not going to be just that. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was handled great either way, even after the reveal
I
of what's
agree.
going on. And
Yeah.
then there are a lot of character decisions. I think you had mentioned with the dad, right? There's just a lot of decisions that the characters made, specifically the dad,
Mhm.
that I just was not vibing with. I think in a real any obviously you have to have suspension of disbelief with horror movies for
Yeah.
sure. We know this. But I think
Yeah.
if we were to believe this as a real situation in a found footage setting, which you're supposed to buy in that this is a real situation, especially given the premise of found footage, right?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just decisions that just didn't make sense. And
Yep.
almost like decisions solely to make matters worse.
Yes.
You
Cookie
know,
like too perfect. Too so illogical for the sake of seeming logical. Like for the path of the yeah, I no, totally agree.
right? Conveniently
Totally.
bad decisions.
Yes.
To the point, yeah,
Yes.
like it just didn't feel like a mistake that the character made or whatever.
No, it's yeah, no,
Um,
I totally agree with that, especially when you're talking about parent relationships with their children.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. We're
exactly.
both parents. Like it's you know,
Right, so we're gonna see that we're gonna watch through that lens.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then I'm also thinking, like, I don't know, this movie, I don't know if with you probably as well. I mean, given that we're probably on the same page here, just let me
Yeah.
feeling so icky, and not in like this is a good dark horror ending, more of like I just felt gross. What like by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think I felt pretty similar. Like it wasn't the same kind of feeling like after watching like Savage Land, for example, where you really have to sit in your feelings and process through the emotions that it made you feel.
That was like a
This
good sad, right?
it
That
was
was like
right,
a
that's my point. It's like it's
yeah,
coming from a discomfort that we kind of expect or want when we watch movies that are in the horror genre. And this was a discomfort of it in a negative sense, in a not so pleasant way of and a lot of it I genuinely can't express why I feel that way until we can talk about spoilers because it's very specific things that made me feel that way. But no, I agree. Afterwards, I just felt like, ugh, like, yeah, it did leave a bit of a bad taste for me. And I say this and here's the thing. Here's what's true. Okay. Conceptually, this is a good story. The
sure.
kids were great. I loved the opening couple of shots of this. The very, very
Hmm.
beginning, I thought was done very, very well.
Oh, there was like the
And there's
documentary stuff was cool. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and there is like Steve said, some definite like you get some feeling like you're watching Paranormal Activity 2. There's definitely moments like that. You get really interested and connected with Belle because of her just innocence and she just feels very real. And so no going into the movie knowing she's missing because it's on the poster,
hmm
you go into it worried for her, I think. So I think those are all positives that I think can be taken and put into another film and there can be a lot of growth with those things.
right.
But there's definitely some things going on with some story elements that were just I think like Steve said not handled very well. And I just think and I don't know if it's like a performance thing specifically with the mom and the dad or if it's more just the way they were fleshed out as characters.
I think it's a
I'm not
script thing too.
sure
It's a
like
script thing.
which is the problem. Maybe a combination of things. I'm not sure, but it just made for a really rough experience and not in a, crazy edgy Poughkeepsie tapes kind of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Yeah, it's a logical script thing with some of the performance too. I think it's a mix. It's a mix of both.
Yeah, it's a mix. That makes sense to me too. Well, what do you rate this?
I'm gonna give it a 5.5.
Okay.
And that is solely based, I think, really on the kids' performances
Mhm.
being as believable and good as they were. I think there is some creepiness that is successful. Like you said, some of that beginning stuff. I like the mockumentary setup, sort of the
Yep.
what's going on here, and
Yeah,
like there is good to be sort of highlighted.
I agree.
But I think there's a lot of stuff that just sort of keeps it from reaching that success that I think that they were hoping for.
Yeah. No, I agree. Mine's gonna be a little bit lower than that. I would give this a 4
Okay.
out of 10 tapes. The good the good that's there is really, really good, but it gets weighed down for me with the negatives that I had with it. And
Sure.
so it just becomes it's a little less than middle ground for me. So I
Yeah,
would give it 4 out of 10 tapes.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Um, well, I honestly, I can't think of very much else to say without being able to talk spoilers, just because a lot of my stuff is so like specific to things that
Yeah, me too.
happen.
Yeah, we're
Um,
gonna head into spoilers then.
okay. All right. That sounds good.
Yeah, let's go in and just sort of
Yeah.
process and piece it together.
Yeah. Were you a fan of Skinamarink? Was that one that you liked?
Oh, I like, yeah. It's not a movie I think
Okay.
I could watch a lot of, but I think
God, no.
I can't watch it again. But I
No, me
think because
neither.
it's so
No, but
effective in what it
I
does.
love it. Like it was in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
top list for the year that it came
I
out. I
think
love it.
Skinamarink is fantastic. This could have been very Skinamarink-y, right?
So I brought it up because there are some moments where it felt like not because it's shot the same way because it's definitely Skinamarink is a very experimental. It's its own experience altogether. But there were some moments in the dark. There's some moments with the kids talking. There's just certain these little things that I think put me on edge because I was like, ooh, like Skinamarink made me so insanely uncomfortable from start to finish. That is such an uncomfortable movie. And I mean that in the best way because I love that film.
Yeah.
But it made me feel those things. But then usually what would happen is something right after that would just like yank me back out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe if
so I
we
guess like
only had it from the kid's perspective, I think this
yeah,
movie also probably could have been much better.
yeah. I think the security cameras were weird.
It was I didn't understand why they needed them.
Me either, especially because he wasn't checking them when all the crazy stuff starts happening. Like,
He
what
looked at
was the
them
point?
once. He remember he, like, called her and he was like, "I saw you crying," or, "I saw you
But
upset."
none of the other stuff. The
None
throwing
of it.
out all the food, what was like, where was he when that was happening?
Right, right.
Like her randomly in a corner talking to herself, like this. Okay. The other thing is, and this is just my personal take on this, because I get the concept of baby cameras. I had them. Oliver
Mhm.
had a camera in his room until he was 3. But I feel like 8 years old, unless there is a pre-existing condition of things like falling out of bed, sleepwalking, things like that,
Right.
that make sense. There needs to be some autonomy there. I think I think 8's a little too old for people to have access to their daughter's private space. Like, I don't know, like, and I'm sure some people are like, oh, that's my kid. And that's fine if that's your practice. I don't believe that. I
Yeah.
think that an 8-year-old little girl does not need to have her or even the little I'm not forgetting the brother. I know he exists too, but he was younger. He's a little bit younger.
Yeah, but he wasn't,
Um,
like, toddler. He was or, like, he wasn't, like, 3,
no, he was
2.
probably like 6, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
7. But like I just feel I was so uncomfortable with the concept of having cameras in your children's room when they're that age. Like that doesn't feel realistic to me. That if I went into someone's house that I knew and they did that to their kids, I would be concerned. I would be like, why is it like that? Is there something
Yeah.
going on? Like, what's
Yeah,
the
like a
reason?
camera in the yeah, and then, well, just the whole house being cameraed out the way it was felt weird, like, in Paranormal Activity 2, right, it sort of makes sense where they have the cameras because, there was a break-in,
There's a
whatever.
break in. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a
There was no
reason.
reason in this one.
there's no reason. He's just like, yeah, we're gonna just keep an eye on the house, you know. And I'm like, oh,
And then didn't utilize that at all, because I mean, I guess the way that the film flows, it would have been really short if he had come home when things started getting weird, right? Because he would have been there before things got
right.
too crazy.
I
Well,
think he
in
meant to like
theory,
send his mom or her mom over, right? I think that was like part of the conversation, right? He was like,
and
I want to
she gets
send.
mad, right?
She gets mad, like, don't send anyone over, or like I think he wants to send one of their mothers over.
Somebody, yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that on one of the calls.
yeah. And she
Yeah,
gets mad. And she's like, if you're so upset, just come home or something. If you're so worried, just come home.
yeah, but I struggled with the cameras in the kids' rooms. I just think that at some point that's a bit much. I think children have a right to their own like
Yeah,
space, you know? And I think that when we teach them that they don't, I know this is like deep, right? And I get that, but I just have very strong beliefs around children not being allowed privacy when
yeah,
everyone is entitled to privacy, in my opinion. Like, so
exactly.
that was the original, like, I really don't like that concept for me. That was the
Yeah,
first
sure.
thing that really put me in a weird space with it.
Yeah, then I didn't clock it right away. The way that you explain it, for sure. I think it's just because
Yeah.
we still have the camera because he's not even 2 yet.
No,
So
yeah.
like, but like
Yeah.
I mean, in my world, the camera is already normal, just because I'm just always
Sure.
like, oh yeah, the baby camera, whatever.
No,
But
100%. We had it until Oliver
yeah,
got a toddler bed and he could
so I
get
just
out.
didn't clock it as weird right away. I just think just the idea that there was cameras everywhere,
Was
that
bizarre.
specifically was weird. Without
Yeah.
I was like trying to look for the reason or like listen for the reason, and they don't think they gave
No,
anything
there's not really any reason.
because it opens with him with Belle just getting the camera,
Yeah. Well, it starts with the police footage.
with the documentary, and then the first we see of the family,
And then the
like
first thing of the family is him opening it and giving it to her.
giving it to her. Yeah.
Yes.
But then there's a lot of weird. So like, yeah, the dad makes a lot of decisions here.
Yeah.
When they're making s'mores and he's telling the ghost story, in hindsight, is such a shitty because he's clearly talking about the mom, right?
Yes.
And she's like, "Don't tell them the story," and he's like, "I'm gonna tell them the story anyway." And like
There
the whole
yeah.
thing is like he's telling the kids to look, so clearly she doesn't want the kids to look. That becomes the whole thing, right? But it feels like you were actively antagonizing your wife here, and like and if you obviously she's on medications, you know that she's having mental health issues, and you were antagonizing probably what started it or what was at the beginning of it, right?
Yeah.
Um, it just was like it felt very mean spirited, and I don't
Yes.
know, like, okay, are we supposed to then imagine, like, are we supposed to then assume that this is not a good man, right? And then, but they don't give us any other indication to believe that, right? Because otherwise
No.
he's very loving with the kids, and he's a very good, like
He seems like like a balanced character otherwise, like, as
right.
far
But
as,
then he
like, on
does
the
these,
good side of things.
yeah. But then he does these things like telling the story and sort of pushing her over the edge with that, and then not checking the cameras
His
or
his decision to leave at the time that he does, she's already had an episode at
she
that
did
point.
have an episode, yeah.
And then he's, like, arguing with her about the pills in front of the kids, which parents, if you're listening, don't do things like that either in front of your children. So that irritated me too, because then it's like it creates distrust between the child and the
Mhm.
mother, which for the story makes sense, but not as a well-rounded story element does it make sense, because it's like you knew all of these things
Yeah.
and you didn't pay enough attention to the cameras you made the point to put in, and then you just left them there. Like,
Mhm.
and it wouldn't matter how you spun that. That wouldn't make sense to me. Like, I would never understand, like, if this was on the news and the dad was like, "Yeah, she was weird as hell before I left, but I had to go to work." I'd be like, this is your fault." Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
right.
know what I mean? Like, I
You
just
saw it. You saw it and didn't say anything or didn't do anything. Yeah.
it's and that I don't know, like, it just those kind of things just affected my ability to believe the story, I think,
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah. It was
Um,
very hard. And then like, yeah, and obviously like at first, like before you first see the entity, like you're like, oh, is this just gonna be like some wild mental health thing happening? And then like
yeah.
so like I was before you get that first image, I was 100% off board. Like I was like, no.
Yep. I was the same way.
I was gonna give this movie like a one.
Yeah, because I can't stand that stuff. I can't stand it.
Um, like, I don't think we need to
Um,
exploit mental health. Like, there's
no.
better ways to do that now. We're beyond that trope.
Yes, that's one of my least favorites. Like, "Oh, they were just crazy." That's how they paint it. Like, they're just
Yeah.
crazy. Uh-uh.
Yeah, that's like a
No,
very
so
old soap opera thing. That's a very old.
you said something just now that made me think. You said the first time. Do we see it more than once?
No, because we just get the one shot that they're
Okay.
running and it knocks
Okay.
off the bear.
I thought
Right?
okay,
It's the
I think I missed
downstairs shot, like, you're looking down the stairs, and then it's in the little upstairs living area.
I missed it completely.
Okay,
The
there was
only time I saw it is at the very end, that last shot.
no, there's, like, at 2/3 through the movie,
I
there's
missed
a
it
shot of the
completely.
camera looking down the stairs, and where the kids play upstairs,
Yep,
there's a thing that runs in the corner, and it knocks over the teddy bear.
I missed it
Yeah.
completely.
That's like that's the that every once because once I saw that, I was like, "Okay, it's not gonna be she's
See,
not just
yeah.
crazy."
Well, then that's probably why the ending was so aggravating for me because it was
Gotcha.
literally the only thing. It felt so out of place to me
No,
because
there
I
should have
missed
been
that.
more. There should
I
have
missed
been.
that completely.
Yeah, I get, like, if you can't do the special effect much, or if you
Yeah.
don't wanna, like, I don't know if it was a budget thing, you could have done
Mhm.
something. Pulled a toy with a string, I don't give a shit. Like, do something
Look,
silly.
Scott had his wife pull that coin, and it was meant to look faked, and it looked really real to me. I thought that looked so good on
Oh, that
camera.
looked good, I
So
remember that. Yeah, that
we
looked
know
great.
that there are things that yeah, I think there should have been more because some of that stuff really does get missed, and I know I'm not the only one that misses stuff like that because I usually was looking. I was constantly looking for something to be there
Yeah,
other than the stuff with the mom, and I totally missed that part.
yeah.
Totally missed it. I didn't see anything until the last shot of the film.
Yeah, that was the first yeah, and it was literally that image, and it was just, like, running, like, on the corner of the camera. That
Okay.
should have been peppered in throughout.
I wonder
Um,
if I was looking at my phone.
maybe. It is a very blink and you miss it. It happens, like, it's so
Okay,
fast.
then I don't feel as bad for missing it because I was watching it, but it got to be like
Yeah, because it's, like, on the left side of the camera, so it's not even center camera, and it's just
okay
sort of and I get the concept, right?
because
Because it's
the
supposed to be, like, the
corner.
things in the corner of your eye, right? It's supposed to not be,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
but there should have been more of that to pepper in, because really, if you miss that, then you're only getting a mental health story.
And that's why the ending made me so angry.
Yeah.
That's why I was so irritated when I got to the ending because it felt like it's one thing to like bamboozle your audience and then be like, "Dang, they got me." But it's another to me to like throw in something on the end that doesn't actually add up, but you can now say that you had a twist, right? And that's how this felt. This felt like a forced twist that made no sense at all.
Right. Yeah. You don't
And
need to
so to
spoon
your
feed it,
point,
but have more
yeah.
than one opportunity for your audience to be like, "Oh, okay, I see what's happening here now." Right? Because if you only
Yeah,
do it
because I missed it,
once,
dude.
and this
I
ain't this
totally
ain't
missed
a
it.
long movie,
No.
but
It's a
it's not
little
a
over an hour.
little over an hour, right? It's what is it? An hour and did they list the runtime on IMDb?
17 or 12.
Hour 13. It says on IMDb.
I
Yeah.
was close. There you go.
Which so it's a short movie, but you don't have to hit us over the head with it. But if you do the one time that I mentioned, and then maybe two more times, once in the beginning and once maybe after that, but just to give people an opportunity to see what's going on, because then you
Yeah.
miss it completely. Um, but what else I was going to say? Oh, I mean, also around the logic too. I did not understand who the hell the mom was talking to. Because I get it. Obviously there's a mental health stuff, right? But then if there's really paranormal stuff going on, then that would lead me to believe that then she's talking to something that maybe she's really seeing. Like that's sort of the complication, right? Between having unclear mental health stuff, and unclear
Yeah.
paranormal stuff.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, there's a part of me that wasn't even sure this was paranormal. There was a part of me that was like, is it aliens?
Uh, well, it's just
I
paranormal, but
know,
it's
like I
extraterrestrial. It could be aliens, right?
I feel like that might be a stretch.
Oh, it could be though.
However, it just I don't know. There are
We're
just so to your
interdimensional.
point, there's a lot of gray area around it. And I
That's, and there's ambiguity, and that's fine, right? You can have some ambiguity in your story,
Well, were we
but
supposed to wonder if she had mental health issues at all? You know what I'm saying? Like, was she
right, which
taking
is
drugs for the sake of taking them because everyone told her she had mental health issues? I think
but
it
then
kind of goes
address
with what
that.
you're saying. There's like no clarity on what we're supposed to believe as the audience.
We just see someone having a complete breakdown, abusing their children,
Oh my
like,
god, that part where she's yelling at them about the game, this "don't look" thing, I almost couldn't get through that scene.
yeah. I mean,
Because
yeah,
that's the other thing is, like, if she wasn't actually sick, then she was still not being a very great mom, right? But,
right.
like but then there's things like, is the like, I didn't understand the messaging. Is it like, she really did have issues, right? Things going on,
Mhm.
and the medicine didn't help, or is the medicine the reason? Is the entity the reason? What is the thing? And like, and also, why is the entity telling her that they're going to take her kids, her daughter?
Right, but who is she? Yeah, because who is she saying they're not ready? Who? Ready for what?
What are we, is this supposed to be Paranormal Activity? Is this a Toby? What are we talking about?
Right,
Like,
like, who is she talking to? Is she talking to
and
herself?
then,
Right?
oh
Like,
God. Okay. So the final shot of Skimmering destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me.
what was the last shot of it? I can't
When you
remember.
see the blood come out it's on the, it's like on the ceiling. It goes, and it like
Oh,
shoots
yeah.
across the, okay, destroyed me. The little boy at the time that I watched the movie was the same age as my son. That destroyed me. Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I will say, speaking on a positive, because I feel like I'm not trying to bear down on this indie project. I'm really not. This is honest feedback. I will say that I hated her. So if I was supposed to hate her, that was very well done because I wanted to pick her up by her throat when she hurt that little boy.
Yeah. Oh,
Like, it was so those things that I think are meant to be uncomfortable absolutely were. It was very uncomfortable watching her scream in her children's face, "Don't open your eyes." That was
yeah,
very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable to watch her stab her son and
yeah,
then attempt to get her daughter to let her stab. That was all very uncomfortable. The problem is that it doesn't feel the same type of uncomfortable as it would have with a more solid everything else because
yeah,
I walked away from and I'm not, I really hate to keep comparing it to this, but it's the only thing I can think of that's close is Skinamarink, right? So when I
yeah,
walked away from that terribly sad movie feeling defeated and broken, I walked away feeling those things, but thinking that was a really great film. That
yeah.
made me feel a lot of really crazy things, and it was really great. Whereas
That's why I
this,
think. Okay.
yeah. No, go ahead.
No, 'cause I was thinking, I mean, I think this movie would have benefited if you took away the security camera stuff. It was
Yeah.
just from the kids' perspective, and their parents are acting a little weird. They don't know what's happening. It's very obscure, and maybe there's paranormal stuff happening too. And it's just the
Yeah.
kids being scared, and you're staying with the kids. And I think that scope would have helped it.
And I think less showing the mom having episodes would have actually been more helpful.
I think so
Like
too.
like the crying scene, just for example. If we had Belle holding the camera and saying, "I hear something downstairs. I think my mom is crying." She goes to the top of the steps, let's just say, and just for a second you hear the crying, but then like the stair creaks or Belle makes a movement and the mother hears, so she zips it, and then you
Yeah.
don't hear anything else. Or
Right.
maybe
Just like a
add
creepy crying in the back. Yeah, that would.
just something that just it's too long of a scene for what it was trying to do, I think, and it just
Yeah.
would have been better if it had been tighter. It's like, less is more. And I
Yeah.
think that the more we saw her doing stuff, the more like removed from it all I became because it was just like and
Right.
I'm telling you, and the other scene, by the way, that made me really, really insanely uncomfortable was watching those babies eat out of that trash can. That had me up.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Because it's like real abuse happening mixed in with all
Yes,
this.
and I don't know why. I don't know why. Are
Yeah.
the spookies telling her like we're gonna kill your kids? What is happening? What is worse than their mother stabbing them in the stomach? Help me understand. Like I need more. This was too ambiguous, I think, too open.
Right. Because it got too real at some points, but then not real enough
Yes.
here. and then it's
Yes.
such a it just leaves you so off kilter because you don't really know where to ground yourself.
Perfectly said.
Y
Totally agree. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I don't know. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, as far as
I
yeah,
really do think those kids were like
I mean, the kids deserve, I think, all the praise here.
they did a great job.
Like, for real.
She played innocent and nervous, and the brother, like that scene where he comes in and he's like, "Can I sleep with you?" I was just like,
Mhm.
"Oh,"
To
like
protect her big sister, yeah.
yeah, they were sweet. They were perfect. They were everything that
Yeah,
that did work with this, I think. And
yeah,
I think that in general, as a filmmaker, there's a lot of really good here that can be taken to another project with some learning and some
yeah,
growth and some changing and listening to feedback. And I know a lot of people really love this, and I think that's great. We love indie horror regardless, no matter if it works for us, if it doesn't work for us, whatever. Doesn't matter. We want more indie horror, especially me specifically, like especially in found footage, because I
yeah,
think that that's where the best stuff comes from.
yeah,
And I think that there is really good things here that can be taken to other films. So I genuinely look forward to seeing more, um, and seeing, kind of what this filmmaker can do, maybe with something else.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I definitely wanna see more from these kids too. Like,
my God, the kids were
yeah,
phenomenal. And I always wonder too, when those kids are like, when they're so small, like, how do you get them to do stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because Like, if like, my son doesn't listen when I tell him to put on shoes. Like, how would he listen to, like, "I need you to go into this room, go through the trash can, find something on the top of it, and put it in your mouth and pretend like you're eating it." Like,
yeah.
how do you get kids to do stuff? I'm just amazed
And
by it.
memorize their lines and deliver it with, like, believable, like, emotionally believable, right?
Yeah. It's
Like,
crazy.
it's impressive.
It's crazy. But, yeah, we'll see. If you've seen Life of Belle and you were really just blown away with it, and not being sarcastic, I really want to know why. I
Yeah,
really want to hear other people's thoughts on this because right now it's being really well received, which I think is great. It just was not a hit for me.
yeah. I'm
Personally.
wondering, like, is, like, our parent lenses too
I
critical?
I
Is
don't
it,
know why.
like I don't but then again, I don't know. Is my therapist lens too critical? But then I
Maybe
don't
it's
know.
my childhood trauma. Like, maybe my childhood trauma is just not letting me see this outside of the way I feel as an adult because of things I went through. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Because like I said though, I mean, there are moments in this that when she's yelling at them and stuff, like I genuinely thought I was gonna have to turn it off. Like, I didn't think I was gonna
Yeah,
get through
it's
it.
intense. And then when
It
she,
was
like, jumps on the bed, right? Oh, yeah, wait, there's the when they're playing and she's screaming at them, but then there's the part where Belle's just crying, and then she, like, leaps out of nowhere and,
Oh,
like
that got me. That I'm glad you said that. That's another positive. That scene scared the shit out of me. I
yeah,
was not prepared for that. So when she jumped up there, that scared me. That got me. That
when
was
the
good.
mom jumped on her, I was like, "Jesus, like, where
That
you were
was
there the whole
good. That
time?"
that got me. No, that was good. That was really good. The timing on that was impeccable.
Yeah, yeah.
That was good. Because you
It
can't
was real
see her. It's pitch black.
yeah, yeah. I was like,
Scared
"You
the
were there
shit
the
out
whole
of me.
time? Like, you
That
were
was
just in the
good.
room while she was crying?" Like, "Oh my god."
That was good. No, that was a really good scene. I'm glad you brought that up. I'd
Yeah,
forgotten about it. That was really good. That got me.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, that was really good. Like,
And,
I
like, then,
remember
like,
being I
Belle
think
trying
I
to figure
paused
out
it after, and I was
oh.
like, "Son of a bitch."
Need a second. I mean,
Yeah.
and then, like, when Belle's, like, going around trying to figure out how to escape, it just felt very very Skinamarink, very intense, 'cause very just sorta like there are again, yeah, that was really where the strengths were. I don't know, maybe the director, maybe Sean's gotta work on, like, just do, like, a kid-led horror movie. I think that
I think
sorta seems to be
these kids would be it. They would be
yeah,
the ones to do because they were phenomenal, loved them,
yeah,
loved
because I think
them.
this really the kid perspective stuff was really where it was at.
Yeah, totally agree, totally agree. Okay, cool. Well, those are our potentially controversial thoughts on Life of Belle. Life
Life with Life of Belle. She goes it was that was also kinda cute. She was trying to come up with different titles of her show.
Yeah, that was really cute
That
and
was a
very realistic. That's the process, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
love that he's like there oh, and one more thing. There was that part where he was like, "I didn't know anybody watched him," and she's like, "They don't. I haven't uploaded them yet." It's just recording, and it's so cute and honest, and I
Yeah,
just love her. They were great. I loved her and her brother. I think they did a great job. So
absolutely.
kudos to them. But yeah, that's our thoughts on Life of
Of
Belle. Life of Belle, sorry. Life of Belle. I said it right the first multiple times. Life of Belle. It's on Tubi.
Mhm.
We just spoiled the heck out of it. So if you're still watching and you want to, it's on Tubi. Genuinely, if you have if you really, really loved this, I would love to hear in the comments all the things that you felt when you watched it. Yeah, I think that's gonna wrap up this episode of Found Footage Fridays. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Have a good week coming up. And Steve and I will see you in the next one.
Bye.